Children, today we are going to study a poem named In the Bazaars of Hyderabad by Sarojini Naidu. This poem is there in your English literature book for class 7. This is a very good poem where we are going to visit the bazaars of Hyderabad. Before beginning with the poem, let's know something about the poet. The poet Sarojini Naidu. Now she was one of India's best known political figure and a freedom fighter, closely involved with the Indian independence movement. She was also a great orator. Orator is a person who has a great skill in speaking publicly, and one of India's most talented poets, known for her diversity of her writings. That means she had written a wide variety of poems. She was given the title of the Nightingale of India. Nightingale is a bird which sings sweetly. Among her best known work is The Planking Bearers. Now children, when you go to a bazaar, you may be seeing various things. You may get the smell of various things. You may also hear various sounds. So you just recollect there in your mind. In your mind, what are you going to recollect? The scene of a bazaar. And put yourself over there to understand this poem. Now, when was this poem written? This poem was written at the time of the British rule. This poem was written as a protest against foreign goods, so that Indians buy traditional goods made in India. So through this poem, Sarojini Naidu wanted to convey the message that India is rich in tradition and they don't need the foreign products. So she goes on to give a picture of a bazaar where traditional Indian products are sold. The poem is in the form of questions and answers. Just as when you go to a bazaar, you ask something, the seller gives you the reply. So in the same way, this poem is there in a question and answers. The poet asks the questions and the merchants answer. Then through this technique, she makes the picture of the bazaar visible to us. I am going to explain you stanza wise. I'll first read the first stanza, I'll explain you, and accordingly I'll move ahead. So let's see the first stanza. What do you sell, O ye merchants? Richly your wares are displayed. Turbans of crimson and silver, tunics of purple brocade, mirrors with panels of amber, daggers with handles of jade. So in the first stanza, the poet questions whom? The merchants, the sellers, that what are you selling? And you have displayed all your things. Wares means goods. Wares means goods. You have displayed your goods so nicely. What all things you are selling? Turbans. You know what is turbans? Turban is a head dress for men, which is tied above with a cloth. And of what color these turbans are? Of crimson and silver. Now what's crimson? Crimson is deep red in color. And silver. They are also selling. What are they selling? Tunics of purple brocade. Tunics is a garment from hips to the ankles. Tunics of purple brocade. Now what's a brocade? It's a thick, heavy fabric. Mirrors are also sold with panels. Panels means frame. Panels means frame. Of amber. What's amber? A yellow-orange color. And daggers. Daggers is a knife which is used to stab people. So dagger is a knife. Daggers with handles of jade. How are the handles of this knife made? Of jade. Jade is a hard stone, usually green, for making ornaments. So these were the things sold by this merchant, and he was telling that these are the things what he is selling. So over here we are seeing that the poet questions and the merchant replies. So this particular stanza, we get to know what all things are sold by the merchant in the first stanza. Let's see the second stanza. What do you weigh, O ye vendors? Saffron and lentil and rice. What do you grind, O ye maidens? Sandalwood, henna and spice. What do you call, O ye peddlers? Chessmen and ivory dice. So in the second stanza, the poet questions whom? The vendors, the peddlers, the salesmen, that what are you weighing? So the salesman, the seller replies, saffron. You know what saffron? Saffron is a spice. Saffron is a spice, orange yellow in color. It's used to flavor food. And lentil and rice. Now what's lentil? Lentil is an edible lens-shaped seeds. And even rice. So what do you grind? So then next he questions whom? She questions the maidens, the girls, that what are you grinding? You know what's grinding? Reducing to smaller pieces. To reduce to smaller pieces. What are you grinding? Then the maidens, they reply, sandalwood, henna and spice. So what is sandalwood? It's an aromatic wood, a scented wood. Henna. What's henna? Henna is a reddish brown color. It's used to dye hair. And spice. So what spice? It's used to flavor food. So then he says to the peddler, what do you call? What are you shouting? Then he answers, chessmen and ivory dies. So he says that he is shouting, he is selling what? Chessmen. What's chessmen? Chessmen is a chessboard, and chess is a game. That board he is selling, and even ivory dice. Dice is like a cube, and ivory is white in color. So he was selling chessmen and ivory dice. So in the second stanza, we see first what the vendors are weighing, then what the maidens are grinding, and finally what the peddlers are calling or selling. Let's move to the third stanza. What do you make, O ye goldsmith? Wristlet, anklet and ring. Bells for the feet of the blue pigeons, frail as a dragonfly's wings. Girdles of gold for the dancers, scabbards of gold for the king. So in the third stanza, the poet asks the goldsmith. You know who is a goldsmith? Who makes jewelry, basically of gold. So you will find one who makes things of gold. So the poet is telling to the goldsmith that what are you making? The goldsmith answers that he is making a wristlet. What's wristlet? A band that encircles a wrist. And anklet. Now what's anklet? Anklet, it's a band worn around an ankle. So wristlet, anklet and ring. He says that he also makes bells for the feet of blue pigeons. He says that he makes bells for the feet of the blue pigeons, and these bells are so delicate, they are so frail. They are so frail. Frail means delicate. Delicate as a dragonfly's wings. He also says that he makes girdles. What are these girdles of gold? Girdles are bells fastened around waist to keep clothes in position. So these bells also he makes for the dancers, and he also makes scabbards. Scabbards are coverts of swords made of leather or metal, sheaths, covers for the king. So these all things were made by whom? The goldsmith. This we see in the third stanza. To the fourth stanza. What do you cry, O ye fruitmen, citron, pomegranate and plum? What do you play, O musicians, sitar, sarangi and drum? What do you chant, O magicians, spells for the eons to come? So in the fourth stanza, the poet questions the fruitman. Now who is a fruitman? Who sells fruits. So then the fruitman answers that he is selling citron. What is citron? A citrus fruit like lemon, pomegranate and plum. So these were the answers given by whom? The fruitman. Now as she moves ahead, she comes across musicians. Now she questions them. What are you playing? The musicians answer, sitar, sarangi and drum. Now what's sitar? Sitar is a musical instrument for Indian classical music. And what's sarangi? A bowed stringed instrument. So these were played by whom? The musicians. Then she further moves ahead. So she sees magicians and she asked, what are you chanting? The magician answers that he is chanting, calling the divine power to come. So in this way we see in the fourth stanza that what answers were given by the fruitmen, musicians and magicians. Move to the last stanza, the final stanza. What do you weave, O ye flower girls, with tassels of azure and red, crowns for the brow of a bridegroom, chaplets to garland his bed, sheets of white blossoms new garnered to perfume the sleep of the dead. Now in this stanza, the poet questions the flower girls that what are you weaving? What are you making? Weave means make. With this strings, tassels. Tassels means a bunch of threads that are tied together at one end and hang. So the poet says that what are you doing with these strings of red and blue flowers? She answers that she is making crowns for the brow of the bridegroom. She is making garlands for the bride and the bridegroom to decorate their bed for the wedding night. So she also answers that she is also making sheets of white blossoms newly collected. For what? To perfume the sleep of the dead. That means she is making sheets for use on the dead man's grave for fragrance. This is there in the final stanza, where we get to know what the flower girls do. With this, we come to the end of this poem. I hope you have understood and will be able to write the question answers by your own.